I do not think this was choreographed. I think
We're giving them too much credit.
I think the president really wanted to announce a deal.
Here to discuss the latest, and who might know, is General Philip Breedlove, who's a former NATO Allied Commander for Europe and a 4-star US Air Force General. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Philip.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Well, just give me your personal reaction to what unfolded at the White House today.
Well, it was disappointing, and I guess the word to use is incredulous. I don't know. It was tough to watch because there's been a lot of work. You know, Mr. Putin started this war 11 plus years ago, really, and he has continued the war over and over. And his push to take over Ukraine is a long demonstrated effort, and many of us have been working along the way to try to help Ukraine to be able to defend itself. Remember, this is a country that agreed to disarm, and then 3 countries, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Russia, agreed to assure their sovereignty and their borders. And now that nation is facing aggression across the last 10, almost 11 years from one of the 3 signatories to the Budapest Memorandum of 1994. And how do we engineer a recovery from that? Today was not a step forward, it was a step backward.
It sounds like many people that you feel a sense of despondency here. If we are to try and extend some sort of sympathy or even understanding of the Trump administration's approach, I guess for people in the US, you know, Ukraine is a long way away. There are some people for whom, you know, when the US has debt to GDP ratio of over 125%, you do have to sell this expenditure. So you're obviously sympathetic to Ukraine. How much is that view shared?
Well, there's quite a few Americans that are less sympathetic to Ukraine, but we all see Russia as an enemy and the problem, because Russia has remained a problem. As we talked before, in 2008, they amassed their army, marched across an internationally recognized border, invaded, occupied, and subjugated a portion of Georgia. In 2014, they mounted their army again, twice marched across internationally recognized borders, invaded and subjugated portions of Ukraine, and now here we are again in 23 through 25. They're once again marching across borders with their army, invading a neighbor. And so people in America don't respect that kind of action. We know who the enemy is. We know who started this, and we understand who is the antagonist and who is the aggrieved. And America typically will line up behind the aggrieved.
I mean, how do you think that Donald Trump is feeling right now? Do you think he sees this as a victory? Because it wasn't that long since he's been selling this deal as a great deal for America. If the deal doesn't happen, that's not necessarily a good thing either.
Yeah, I don't want to guess what my president is thinking about this. I'm sure he would have much rather have had a more compliant Zelensky that agreed to everything and then had the celebration on air. It did not work out that way. I'm pretty sure the president's not happy about that. I think that it's important to understand that the last 2 weeks leading up to this day have been very peculiar. Russia has said over and over again that they don't sign up to any of the conditions that the West might seek. And not only do they not sign up to any of the concessions and won't accept any of the concessions, they are asking for the West, America, to give them land that they haven't even conquered. So here they are going into this negotiations, and they have taken a very public, very outspoken, and very clear position that they don't give up anything, and the Ukrainians have to give up everything. And now Mr. Zelensky comes back to America to talk to the President of the United States about a possible, solution to all this. And we don't know what was presented. And we don't know what, our President, Mr. Trump, has had conversations with Putin, he says. Putin on the other side says no, they haven't had those conversations, but we don't really know ground truth there. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Putin has staked out an extremely strong, extremely public, extremely vocal position of what his demands are, and the West is talking only to Ukraine about what they have to give up. That's how we walked into today.
I'm speaking to General Philip Breedlove, who's a former NATO allied commander for Europe. I just want to find out from you, there is a lot of talk that this was choreographed, that some people think that this was an outcome that the Trump administration wanted to get from the meeting. How much did you get that sense watching what unfolded today?
I'm just going to disappoint you here. I do not think this was choreographed. I think
Are we giving them too much credit?
I think that the president really wanted to announce a deal. He is a deal maker. And I actually believe the president when he says he wants to stop the killing. I guess the question we have to ask ourselves is, stop the killing at what cost? If that cost is that the aggressor, the enemy, the bad guy, the instigator gets everything and the aggrieved nation gets nothing, then I guess that's a conversation we have to have with ourselves. Is it worth that cost?
OK, that was General Philip Breedlove, former NATO commander for Europe and four-star Air Force general. Peter Cardwell there. It is interesting to speak to Americans and be reminded that there is also still a lot of support for Ukraine. Russia, a traditional sort of enemy, not that long ago in Cold War era. It's right for us to stress that as well.
Yes, exactly. And there is a lot of worry that Donald Trump is too close to Russia, too close to the Kremlin. It's interesting as well when you have voter changes, and just because there are changes in voting doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who voted Republican necessarily agrees with everything Donald Trump is going to say. And I think he will have his supporters, definitely, but there will be many Americans who are worried by this. This will be huge news in America. There will be huge worry that actually this is perhaps the wrong course of action by Trump as well. And there will be many who don't like Trump for lots of reasons anyway. But even some of his supporters might say the net result of this, it was going pretty well, actually. If you think about the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, Trump wanted lots of countries to increase their spending on defence. The UK has certainly done that. He wants it to be further, but he's done well in that. And he also wanted to discuss peace in Ukraine and, as the General said there, sign that deal on minerals. And that looked as if it would happen today. This wasn't meant to happen. And having been in government for 3.5 years, I can say, and having covered politics for about 20, I can honestly say that usually when things go wrong, it's 99% cock-up and 1% conspiracy.
Rather than, yeah.
I don't think this was planned.